2020, a year none of us will forget. Before we get into it, a lot of disclaimers. First off, these are movies that were released in 2020. So movies that I didn't get to see until 2020, like Little Women, did come out in 2019. Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I really wanted to add to this list because it wasn't released in theaters until February in the US. However, it was released overseas and limited release in the US in December. I'm not counting Hamilton, which I raved about on this channel, just because that is a recording of a Broadway production. It doesn't feel like a film to me. And I also just have to say I did not see every film this year, so maybe there's a chance one of your favorites isn't on this list because I simply haven't seen it. Apologies in advance if I was making this video 6 months in the future. There'd probably be a lot more 2020 movies I could add to this list. Besides that, this is simply a list of opinions, so you're gonna disagree. I would be very shocked if you agreed with my placement of all 10 movies. Couple honorable mentions. Mank was a fantastic movie by David Fincher that just barely missed my list, along with His House, which was a brilliant horror movie. We don't get a lot of those. It was really great. Also, shout out to Small Axe, directed by Steve McQueen on Amazon Prime. I'm only 2 movies within this 5-movie anthology, and it's brilliant. Didn't quite crack my top 10, but so far I'm loving what I'm seeing with these movies. Alright, let's get into it. My top 10 movies of 2020. Trial of the Chicago 7. Definitely not one of Aaron Sorkin's best films, but nevertheless, it's still great. This one fell on the edge and I almost didn't include it, mostly due to the poor character development and overall generic plot when it comes to these courtroom dramas. But nevertheless, the all-star cast still delivers an incredible performance, each and every one of them, just some of the best of the year. Honestly, this movie reminds me a lot of Mangrove, which was the first film in Small Axe, and in a lot of ways, that movie fixed a lot of my issues in the Trial of Chicago 7. However, this movie is still powerful, especially watching it within the context of 2020. It's honestly very unfortunate how relatable this movie is right now, and it's still worth everyone's watch. I would highly recommend it on Netflix right now. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is another movie you can watch on Netflix right now. This is a masterpiece of a script, and immediately you will realize that this was taken from a stage performance. It has it written all over it. Chadwick Boseman gives one of the best performances of the year, and I will be not surprised at all when he's nominated for an Oscar, while Viola Davis just demands your attention playing the title character of this film. Now, it is nowhere a perfect film, but it's honestly as good as you can ask for while adapting a stage performance into a movie. It's a great examination of a group of people. It's like that Breakfast Club feel where it's just a small amount of time spent with them, and then there's bickering and arguing and diversity within their opinions. It's an examination of their life and their experiences, and while they walk in and you think they have a lot in common, you're actually surprised learning how different they truly are in their beliefs and what they stand for. It's an amazing script that makes you want to spend more and more time with these characters. Tenet is peak Nolan, with all the good and with all the bad. I really struggled putting this movie on my top 10 because it's really not a good film. The characters are so poorly written and the plot is so generic it feels like a robot just put it together. But I can't help but love the experience. Christopher Nolan has this way of taking all that bad and making you almost forget about it while you're watching the movie because you're drawn into this experience, this larger than life set pieces, these concepts that make you want to talk and think and process over and over and over what you just watched. And it's not till you're out of that experience and think about the movie and realize, you know what, that's actually not a really well done movie. Nevertheless, I can't help but put it on here because subjectively I loved it. It's a great time, and I know this is going to be one of the first ones I rewatch from this list. So your opinion of this movie may solely depend on your opinion of Pete Davidson. I happen to love Pete Davidson. Like most Judd Apatow movies, there's not much to this plot, and like most Judd Apatow movies, I think this movie is slightly too long and should just get to the point. But this movie is essentially spending time in Staten Island with Pete Davidson, with Bill Burr, with all these other characters that either you love them or you don't. I think this movie is especially meaningful following the context of Pete Davidson's public life, dealing with mental health and his other struggles in a very public way. This movie is very personal to him, and he's inviting everyone along on this journey, and for me it worked. I felt like I was invited to just spend time in his world. This movie gave me one of my favorite classic film going experiences. You go to a movie knowing little to nothing about that movie, and then what little expectations you have are shattered immediately. Then it's followed by not being able to tell the tone of this movie. Is it a bad drama, or is it a very clever written comedy? But the fourth step is the most important one, and that's after the movie, when you just can't stop thinking about it. What happened within the first 5 minutes of the movie I didn't get until I was well out of the movies, thinking about it days later, realizing how brilliant it actually was. This is no exaggeration in saying this is probably the movie I have thought about most this year. Evan Rachel Wood gives what I think the best performance of the year. It's funny, clever, thought-provoking, and there's actually a very touching story here, and it's one, like I said, cannot leave my brain. I would highly recommend this movie, and I would say this might be the most underrated movie of the year. Surprise, surprise, another controversial pick on this list that either people are going to love or think this is the most pretentious try-hard film of the year. To be completely honest, I think it's both. I think this is a very pretentious movie that is trying so hard to have these deep, deep meanings. I just think most of those deep meanings connected with me. I think it's brilliant. It's the type of movie that has such a vague ending that keeps you guessing and you're never quite sure where it lands. There is no resolve to any of the tension, and days later, after reading, discussing, trying to figure out what it means, all of a sudden it clicks, and it's a beautiful masterpiece. It's definitely not Charlie Kaufman's best piece of work, but it's one that I think is a great addition, especially to those who haven't grown tired of his style yet. Probably one of the darker movies I've seen this year, especially with tone and overall message, so don't go into it expecting a good time, like, at all. So Soul is the most recent addition to this list, but the second I saw it, I knew that this was one of my favorites of the year. It's an instant classic, and if this wasn't Pixar, I'd probably say this is the best movie that this studio has ever made, but it is Pixar, so unfortunately, how can you compare it to all the masterpieces that they've already made? But this movie holds its own, and especially with all the sequels we've been seeing the past couple years with Pixar, this definitely gives me hope for the future of animation. This film is the perfect example of how animation can often tell stories that live action can't. Through the cinematography and the music, I don't think this movie could be done any other way. The best part though is that the music and cinematography almost fall to the side because the story and the message behind this movie are so powerful, and that's the number one thing that you will remember after watching this movie. Riz Ahmed is, I think, my favorite performance of the year in a role that is so beautifully written. A film about a musician who loses his hearing. It's a beautiful written thriller of an unspoken fear that many have, while at the same time being very respectful to people within this community who live with this every single day. It's simply beautiful to pay this much attention to the deaf community and show their lifestyle every single day. I think the most beautiful part about this film though is the metaphor that it represents. What happens when things go wrong, not according to plan, when you feel like you lose it all? How much do you try just to get it all back or adapt to a new way of living? I think in a way we've all had to do this year, and I think that's why this movie speaks so closely to me, because we're all losing a piece of ourselves this year and having to adapt and figure a new way of doing things. That and the sound mixing of this movie is beautiful. I think one of the best I've ever seen, not just with the year 2020. Spike Lee gives a Spike Lee movie in 2020. That is the best way to describe The Five Bloods. It's colorful, chaotic, and delivers such a powerful message, offering diversity, not just with the characters, but what the characters represent or what they believe, their opinions, their lifestyles. This movie brings them all together and leaves them on this adventure that will change their life forever. This film offers some of the best performances I have seen all year, and the topic is so relevant, dealing with these racial issues and politics. Because it is so relevant to the current climate of our country today, it's going to be fascinating to see how well this movie lives on past the year 2020. I don't know if it'll hold up, but I do know today that it does hold up. Palm Springs is a simple movie, and to be completely honest, that's exactly what I needed this year. It's a basic plot. It really is, with a slight twist offering a fresh take on such a familiar genre. The classic, we're living the same day over and over and over again. I don't think you can find a more relevant genre in 2020. Honestly, this movie is beautifully shot and hilarious, and with 2 incredible leads and a great supporting cast, it gives us the perfect analogy of a mundane life, when it feels like we're just living the same day over and over and over again. Similar to The Five Bloods, it's going to be interesting to see if this movie holds up past the context of 2020, but giving such a familiar feeling of us all living in an endless cycle, it felt really good to use this movie as an escapism. Living in this beautiful resort and living vicariously through these 2 characters who found a way to beat the cycle that we all want out of. So there it is, my top 10 movies of 2020. I have reviews for all of these movies, so please look in the description and watch those reviews for a more detailed explanation of what I loved so much about them. Like I said earlier, comment below your thoughts. What are some of your favorite movies of the year? Please like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. 2021 is going to be an exciting year for this channel. I know it's going to be an exciting year for all of us. Thank you so much for watching up until this point, and I will see you next time.